r/AskReddit. What industry is a lot shadier than it seems? Avocado farms. Most of the farms in Central America are taken over by the cartel because of how much money is in selling avocados. I'm surprised there aren't more in the US. The textbook industry. Pearson is the ducking mafia. McGraw-Hill was the bane of my existence for years. Ask a Mortician is a really good YouTube channel that tries to make the death industry more open and clear. Trucking. The margins are razor thin and so everyone is trying to nickel and dime each other constantly. The drivers lie to their dispatchers. The dispatchers lie to the brokers lie to the clients. All of this for like $50, $100 sometimes. Not an industry, but higher academia is badly broken. Some of the smartest people are some of the most badly exploited. Old tenured professors limit the number of faculty many departments can have, forcing people to work as postdocs forever, effectively doing all the work the prof should be doing in the first place. Meager pay and long hours, plus constant pressure makes postdocs some of the most depressed people. The grad students are no better either. A lot of the times grad students don't complain about ill treatment, harassment and outright bullying as they don't want to jeopardize their prospects of graduating. If you're a foreigner, this situation becomes even worse, whether you're a grad student or a postdoctoral researcher. All industries are shadier than they seem. I used to work for a flute manufacturer and it was shady as hell. Deeds. The maritime industry. Most of the big companies do things by the book and treat crews well because they're afraid of lawsuits and unions. But many smaller mom and pop companies break laws and violate safety regulations with reckless abandon because they are not as visible and can stay under the radar, so to speak. It's very common for a small company to ask a captain crew to do something illegal and dangerous in order to increase profit, and for the captain crew to comply out of fear of losing their jobs. And that's just the US maritime industry. Sailors from poorer nations who work on ships are often fed little more than rice and cheap ramen for months at a time and paid pennies for their back-breaking work. I love running tugs for a living, but the industry as a whole is rife with shady business. Dietary supplements. It's gotten better, but there's still a lot of half-truths and whole lies. Not all that long ago it was seriously like the wild wild west. And doing your own research is nearly impossible since the signal-to-noise ratio of the information is so low. As a chef owner, I would say delivery services like Grubhub. They take 30% of the sale, leaving the restaurant with basically $0 in profit. And their customer support is a joke. It's like they hate us. Duck them. Never again. Domain names. There's so much shady stuff that goes on when it comes to domain names. Cyber squatting, sketchy registrars, domain hijacking, scams, predatory pricing, etc. Then there's the whole like.org fiasco that's been in the news recently. Pet industry. Basement puppy mills and dogs that are so inbred they can hardly breathe. There are plenty of ethical breeders out there, and some unlicensed breeders are ethical even if in a legal gray zone. But the conditions of some of the so-called puppy mills can be really bad. Sometimes when breeds are mixed and the pup gets the recessive genes the breeders weren't looking for, they straight up euthanize it because they know it won't sell. Not to mention how many purebreds are actually not pure at all, and sold as is. Shady. Jewelry, gems, diamonds is pretty dark. I've seen that movie. Advertising. We don't really give a duck if it works. We already got your money. Even better, it's practically impossible to say it didn't work. Your sales stayed flat. Just think how much they would have dropped if you didn't run that ad campaign. Sunglass industry. Punny business. But, yes, it's true. I'll use Oakley as an example because it's literally close to home. Oakley has not been the same since they were bought out. Oakley was a great company to work for with great bonuses, swag, and extremely high company morale. Their HQ is one of the coolest buildings you could find and the people were always happy to work for a legendary company that really treated their employees right. Oakley knew their customers well, but at the end of the day, it's still a business, and Luxottica wanted that business. Luxottica bought them out in the end, but not through Oakley's own will. You see, Luxottica owns nearly all the major glasses brands and the stores that carry them. They are one step short of a full monopoly of the entire global eyewear industry. Luxottica wanted Oakley, So they took Oakley off all the shelves of every major glasses retailer until Oakley could do nothing but give in. Squeezed dry until they had to be bought at nicer price for Luxottica. The non-profit world. Unfortunately, most people at the top are in it to make a name for themselves and don't usually care about the mission of the organization. The last company I worked for was a small non-profit helping the homeless, and they did care and did a lot of good work. But the old CEO retired, and the new one the board brought on was more interested in her own ego than anything. Fast forward 2 years from that point. 10 out of an original staff of 35 were let go in the span of 2 months, including me. Several programs had to be scaled back or stopped entirely. The organization came under direct auditing scrutiny from local and state government for questionable financial choices the CEO made, like using funds to travel by what would normally be a 2-hour drive, repeatedly, and that CEO then resigned because of the hostile work environment created by the city. Another orga friend works for has come under fire for its CEO firing anyone that disagreed with her, especially when they stood up to her making potentially illegal decisions. And that's far from an isolated story. There's a lot of good people in the lower levels, but the C-level execs of these companies are sometimes crazy. Mattress industry, specifically, mattress firm. Hear me out, K-pop. All the idol industry is shady. I've seen some interviews on retired idols and they have a lot to say about how the industry works. One of them even mentioned that they would split the profit 70/30, but when it came to pay, they divide the expenses 50/50, and if the group didn't make enough money, the idols would be in debt with the producers. Many times, idols would come out much poorer than when they entered. Eyeglasses. You have no idea the snow job they put most people through when it comes to buying them. It's far worse than trying to buy a new car from a dealership. Wholesale frames are about $5.20. Wholesale lens blanks are another $10. Any kind of dip coating, UV, tinting, etc. is negligible cost and effort to apply. Literally pennies. To top it off, they don't even do a whole lot in-house, but send it to labs which are basically sweatshops that can take up to 2-3 weeks when labor time is literally under 5 minutes. Instead of training real opticians and technicians, they're just glorified sales staff now. Most of the time they don't even bother with proper measurement for PD, frame width, or arm fitting. Was an optician in the early 90s. I'm horrified at what the business has become. The music and the art industry. Apparently Tiger Zoos. Edit. Thank you for the gold. You'll probably never recover financially from this. Recycling. Dirty little secret of the recycling industry is how much is either shipped overseas and dumped in a landfill or just sent directly to your local landfill. The good news is the toxic stuff is what is sent overseas. Well, good news if you're not in a poor country, I guess. Recycling is a much more palatable than selling our trash to China as raw materials. What industry isn't? Light bulb industry. No shade there. Fast food is whack. Food service in general. Honestly, I was a waitress for 10 years at various restaurants, but they all had something in common. There was no paid time off, meaning if you got sick and had bills to pay, you were going to work. Not only that, but even if you decided you'd take the day off and lose the money, you were threatened with being fired unless you got a doctor's note, which none of us could get, since we didn't have health insurance. Really wild stuff. Shipping industry, with major corporations such as Walmart being one of the biggest contributors to selling stolen goods. Sometimes trucks go missing or sometimes trucks leave earlier than the established time of departure and never arrive to their destinations. Let's say you have a Walmart appointment for 9 AM. For a 2,000 carton order, it would take at least 2 hours to load all that. But once the loading is done, the truck driver needs to wait until confirmation is given in written form. Well, Walmart truck drivers vanish halfway through the loading and never return. Now, Walmart has about 1,000 boxes not accounted for, plus no confirmation whatsoever that these 1,000 boxes were part of that 2,000 carton order, so they treat them like a bonus. So far, only UPS, FedEx and FedMail are the only companies that keep a close count and send back anything that wasn't in their original order. Heck, Fred Mayer sends the entire order back just for a single mislabeled box. LOL. These 3 guys are the good guys, from what little I've seen. But Walmart, Jesus. Sometimes, boxes get labeled as being something entirely different in order to bypass special qualifications or restrictions. For example, about the time when Corona-chan started going crazy, we had to label toys and board games as groceries for a huge Walmart order that took about a week and a half to properly label and ship. It was a nightmare and pretty much every employee aside from the administrative staff was disgusted and pissed. Sex toys. It's horribly unregulated and there are tons of manufacturers that use unsafe materials to make their toys. r/sex toys has lots of great info for people looking to get any. Medical research. The only way people can keep their jobs at a lot of the institutions with better facilities is to create a steady stream of high-impact publications. Now, research doesn't work that way. You get the supported results whenever it happens. But that's not how hiring, promotion, or tenure committees see it. This means that, in order to ensure you get enough of these desirable publications in the right period, you have to do all sorts of corner cutting. You publish before the results are well supported. You publish results that are unrepeatable. You write papers in the smallest possible units of the work so people need to wait years to see what the full results are. In the process, junior scientists' careers can be made or absolutely destroyed in this system. A lucky student who gets the right project can find themselves as first author on a very high impact paper and be set for years. But an experienced and previously successful postdoc can be ruined when they can't produce the results the senior scientists want, or just not in the right time frame. The senior scientists rarely have the time to do, or carefully look over, the actual research because they are so busy actually writing the papers and the grants needed to fund the work in the first place. If reviewers catch these issues with the papers, the authors just shop the paper to other journals until it passes, and or they put up such a pitched battle with the editors they just let it pass. Sometimes the eds feel they can't handle the pressure. Sometimes are just convinced by the bombast. All of us have seen published papers that we rejected for other journals earlier because the work is poorly done or is just incorrect. To be clear, the authors really believe in their papers even when they are aware of their shortcomings, and they usually have plenty of evidence that papers just as problematic or worse have been published. So why not theirs? On top of everything, the universities and research institutions work over these findings with their press department, and by the time it makes it to journalists, the story is so distorted that it's barely related to the actual work. Bloggers digest this even further and the misperceptions are spread all over a much wider community. Even other scientists in different areas of the same field will absorb this news as truth. These are the scientists on those committees mentioned above, demanding a particular kind of result. As a result of all this, medical research is much more inefficient and expensive than it needs to be. However, scientists need to jobs, grant money, and good facilities to do their work at all, and the system makes it clear what they need to do to ensure those necessities. So they oblige. Edit. I want to be clear that I am only speaking to a very specific area of scientific research here, and I do not intend to tar the whole field with the same brush. Rating services like Yelp refuse to advertise and your good reviews magically get rearranged. Hey, look, if you want to do that and be transparent, I get it. But most every business owner knows how scummy this is, and most clients just have no idea. I have a business that isn't something that would usually be looked for on Yelp. They called and I just froze. Luckily I do long-term rentals and was sold out. Explained I wouldn't have an opening for months. They seem to leave me alone. Yet they have my business on the front page of Google search, under the wrong category. Eyewear. Luxottica owns a large majority of eyewear and holds a virtual monopoly on the market. They control all prices and will crush competition. The only reason eyeglasses and sunglasses are so expensive is because of price gouging. Cruise ships. I was told I was having a minimum of 1 day off every week and work normal hours, 8-10 each day, with a good pay and good prepaid tips. I ended up working 30 days in a row, all over 400 hours, for $1,600 with tips included. This company I was working for was called Scenic Cruises. Ship was called Miss Scenic Crystal. which was an Australian company working over a Swiss company going under a Maltese flag, sailing in Central Europe. That's how I understood it anyways. They deliberately did this so they could break international laws. I counted at least 5 that they broke. Biggest scam company I ever worked for. I resigned after my first month. The police boarded the ship every once in a while because they knew this, but they couldn't do shit because they had no jurisdiction over the ship. I was forced to work with a 39 Celsius fever. I really wanna duck this company up, but I literally have no idea how. And hiring an international lawyer or whatever is too expensive. Edit. If anyone knows how, please contact me. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.